A century ago, dungeons randomly popped up and unleashed a horde of bloodthirsty monsters onto the world, forcing humanity to adapt by awakening supernatural abilities that manifested even in toddlers. Fast forward to the present day, where our gray-haired researcher desperately grabs a passing academic, trying to pitch a revolutionary magic tuning theory that could change the world forever. But all he really needs is one official endorsement from this prestigious professor. Smiling with pure hope, the young scholar hands over his life's work for review, only for the arrogant academic to instantly incinerate the document with blue magic fire, leaving our boy completely frozen in sheer disbelief as his dreams literally turn to ash, while the elitist snob barks that a bottom feeder's research isn't even worth his time, shattering the poor guy's spirit in a world where magical status dictates your entire worth. In this messed up society, the magically gifted get fast-tracked straight to the top, while everyone else is left to rot in the gutters with zero hope of climbing up, and our gray-haired researcher knows this brutal, unforgiving reality all too well. Back in the present, the snobby professor tears the revolutionary paper right in half, accusing our boy of trying to swindle research funds with absolute occult nonsense, before tossing the shredded remains into the wind like they are literal garbage, sneering that a low-status loser would have better luck begging for scraps on the street. Fast forward to a freezing winter night, where the snow begins to fall heavily, leaving our shivering scholar huddled in a dark alleyway, coughing his lungs out, as he punches a dumpster in pure rage, swearing to make that arrogant bastard pay. Shivering in the freezing cold, our boy laments how his tuning theory could save untalented wizards, but his tragic monologue is cut short when a voice calls him a perfect punching bag, turning around only to find two sketchy thugs cornering him in the dim, snowy alleyway, and before he can even explain himself, they brutally beat him into the freezing dirt, leaving our bruised scholar sprawled out as the pink-haired thug wonders if they went too far. Though his blonde partner just sneers that a trash-dressed loser like this is a complete nobody, raising his heavy boot over our helpless researcher's head with a cold, murderous grin, before stomping down with brutal force, making our poor researcher cough up a splash of blood, which is apparently convincing enough for the other thug to just shrug and walk away. But as they turn, our boy glares back with a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. Summoning a pathetic spark of blue magic on his fingertip, our boy tries to make a stand. Yet the blonde thug just laughs, asking if this trash actually thinks he can fight back. They warn him that defying elite university students will get him kicked out of the gutters, leaving our researcher sweating bullets as he desperately holds on to his tiny flickering spark. Honestly, he could easily wipe the floor with these punks if he just used his tuning theory. Except this messed up society values academic prestige over everything, making resistance completely impossible. Realizing he stands absolutely zero chance, our boy decides to make a sudden run for it, sprinting out of the dark alleyway while screaming at the top of his lungs for help before bursting onto a busy public street and begging the passing crowd to call the police. Only to realize that in this heartless world, nobody is coming to save a nobody. A disgusted mother in the crowd looks down on him with utter contempt, warning her son to study hard so he never ends up like this pathetic street trash. But before our boy can even process the humiliation, his attackers catch up to him, blasting him right back into the dark alleyway with a sudden surge of magic, crashing his head violently against the brick wall as he coughs up a fresh splatter of blood, sending him collapsing face first onto the freezing dirt, completely motionless and unresponsive. Realizing they might have actually killed him, the two thugs panic and quickly flee the scene, leaving our helpless scholar bleeding out alone in the snow as his consciousness slowly fades away. Clenching his fist, he bitterly wonders why lacking magical talent makes him subhuman in this world, just as two mysterious suited strangers approach his broken body from the shadows. Reaching out one last time, our boy desperately watches the heartless crowd walk right past him, before his hand finally collapses onto the freezing dirt, his life's work completely mocked and destroyed, bitterly wondering if this pathetic snowy alleyway is really where his story is going to end. But instead of fading into the afterlife, he suddenly wakes up under a lush green tree, staring up at a bright blue sky in complete and utter confusion at his sudden survival. Scrambling to his feet as he realizes he doesn't feel a single trace of pain, only to gasp in shock as he takes a closer look at his surroundings, recognizing the grand gates of Tokonada Academy standing right before his very eyes, since there is absolutely no mistaking the campus he attended 70 long years ago, which is completely impossible since the entire campus was demolished and rebuilt a decade ago. Staring in absolute shock, our boy realizes he might have actually traveled back in time, but his thoughts are cut short when a desperate cry for help echoes through the trees, prompting him to sneak closer, only to find a group of bullies cornering someone nearby. And as he gets a clearer look, his eyes widen in complete and utter disbelief, because the girl they are harassing is none other than a legendary mage from his past, who is currently helpless against these upperclassmen as they laugh at her pathetic struggles, while their smug leader waves a small blue card right in her tear-streaked face, holding her student ID hostage to make sure she knows exactly who runs this school, whispering a sleazy offer to return the card if she just complies with his demands. Before she can even answer, he aggressively grabs her wrists and starts tearing her uniform apart, This arrogant bully sneers that low-ranking trash like her doesn't deserve any human rights. But his smug rant is violently cut short by a sudden blast of blue magic, sending him flying backward and crashing hard onto the stone pavement in complete shock, while his panicked partner rushes over to check on his suddenly incapacitated leader, demanding to know who just fired a basic magic bullet at them from the shadows, only to see Shindo Ikki standing coolly by a tree with his finger still smoking, leaving the thugs completely baffled since he is standing a whopping 50 meters away, which should be physically impossible since that basic spell has a 30-meter limit. Turns out, Ikki successfully used his revolutionary tuning theory to drastically boost his spell's range, sacrificing raw power to snipe his targets from distances they never saw coming. Looking up in absolute shock, the purple-haired girl instantly recognizes him as Shindo, while our boy realizes his future knowledge and magic tuning techniques are completely intact, meaning he finally has the power to rewrite his tragic destiny once and for all. Remembering how his lack of academic prestige previously left his life's work completely ignored, but this second chance at life is his golden ticket to change everything. He vows to climb straight to the very top of this elitist magic academy, stepping forward with a cool confidence that completely throws his opponents off guard, leaving the humiliated bully growling in pure rage as he glares at his savior, though Ikki just stares back with a cold, unbothered expression on his face, until the arrogant punk realizes his savior is just a low-ranking, bottom-tier student. This bully sneers, mocking Shindo for only being able to cast the weakest basic spell. He threatens to report the incident, claiming Shindo will get expelled in a heartbeat, but our boy calmly points out how embarrassing it is to lose to bottom-tier trash. This savage reality check instantly wipes the smug grin right off the bully's face, while his confused lackeys bicker about whether that spell was actually just a basic magic bullet, leaving their humiliated leader gritting his teeth in a state of pure, unadulterated frustration. Ultimately, the coward decides to retreat, throwing out a pathetic threat as he walks away, prompting his panicked lackeys to quickly scramble after him before they get left behind. With the bullies gone, Shindo turns his attention back to the trembling purple-haired girl, who looks up at her savior with a mixture of profound shock and quiet gratitude. Back inside the academy, Shindo finds himself sitting through a lecture he hasn't heard in decades, where their green-haired teacher's currently screaming that they are all literal garbage, reminding the classroom that they have absolutely zero future in this magic-dominated world, though our boy just sits there looking completely unbothered by the loud-mouthed academic, letting out a quiet sigh as he listens to the familiar, pathetic rant. Honestly, hearing Professor Yodobashi screech like a maniac actually brings back some pretty fond memories, especially since Shindo is currently stuck in the infamous low-ranking Class D, which is basically the dumping ground for students with absolutely zero magical talent, serving as a warning to make the elite students feel superior about themselves. But this time, Shindo has no intention of remaining their favorite punching bag. Our boy is completely zoned out, staring out the window instead of paying attention to the lecture, which immediately catches the attention of their short-tempered instructor, who is absolutely fuming at the disrespect, prompting the petty teacher to cook up a malicious plan to publicly humiliate our boy, suddenly calling out Shindo's name to snap him right back to reality in front of everyone. Ordering him to step up to the board, the smug professor demands he solve question 5, leaving Shindo staring at a complex equation while his teacher watches with a nasty grin, secretly gloating that this impossible university exam question is something even he can't solve, making this the ultimate trap to put a disrespectful bottom-tier student back in his place. But as the arrogant academic mocks him for staying silent and failing such a simple task, Shindo casually cuts him off mid-sentence, dropping the correct answer like it was absolute child's play. Professor Yodobashi stares at his textbook in absolute horror, realizing the kid actually got it right. Desperately trying to save face, the sweating academic stutters that the answer must be a mistake, but Shindo calmly asks him to explain the correct solution to the class for educational purposes, knowing full well that the corrupt teacher doesn't actually know the steps to solve it, since the elite university only ever published the final answers without any of the actual steps, leaving the cornered fraud gritting his teeth in sheer agony as Shindo innocently asks what's wrong, forcing the humiliated instructor to mutter a pathetic excuse about misreading the page before confirming it. While our boy just casually scratches his head, the defeated teacher silently vows to destroy him. This petty grudge isn't going away anytime soon, but Shindo has much bigger things to worry about, starting with their next outdoor training session, where he spots a very familiar purple-haired girl nearby. Standing beside the petty professor is a smug, silver-haired student looking down on the entire room. Yodobashi announces that this guest from Class C will be assisting with today's combat training. This corrupt teacher fake apologizes for making an elite student deal with such low-ranking trash, but the guest simply smiles back with a look of pure, condescending arrogance, boasting that he actually enjoys the opportunity to guide the pathetic losers beneath him. Turning his malicious gaze back to our boy, the petty professor calls out Shindo's name, declaring that the class's worst student deserves some extra special, hands-on instruction from Iwaki. Instead of panicking, Shindo just stares back with a completely blank and unbothered expression, calmly stepping forward to accept the challenge while his classmates watch in absolute silence. Patting his star pupil on the shoulder, Yodobashi gleefully sets up their upcoming training match. Yodobashi whispers a sinister reminder to his star pupil not to end the fight too quickly, prompting the arrogant guest to flash a sadistic grin as he promises to drag out the beating, since the corrupt teacher secretly ordered him to thoroughly break our boy's arms and legs, knowing a bottom-tier loser won't even be able to afford proper medical treatment afterward, planning to use this severe injury as the perfect excuse to get Shindo permanently expelled. Watching from the sidelines, the other students whisper that this is what happens when losers stand out, while the purple-haired girl watches in absolute horror, dreading the brutal beatdown about to unfold. But as his opponent smugly steps forward and asks if he is ready to begin, Shindo just offers a polite, completely unbothered bow before calmly telling him to bring it on, leaving the ecstatic professor to raise his hand and officially signal the start of the match. Iwaki immediately activates his rock armor skill, wrapping his body in solid stone plates. This smug elite sneers that bottom-tier trash always get crushed when they get too cocky, but Shindo just offers a deadpan agreement, completely unfazed by the massive power display. Boasting that his stone defense is completely impervious to basic spells, Iwaki prepares to strike, though our boy calmly raises his hand, ready to test that theory with his tuned magic, gathering a brilliant blue light at his fingertips as the entire training field begins to rumble. Screaming in pure rage, the silver-haired bully lunges forward with a massive, rock-solid fist, while Shindo calmly reflects on how the world believes a skill's performance is completely unchangeable, assuming its power, range, and speed are permanently set in stone from the very beginning, which is exactly why society blindly judges a mage's worth solely by their birthright. Shindo calmly aims his finger gun, ready to prove that common sense is meant to be broken, while Iwaki lunges forward with a massive stone fist, confident his armor is completely impenetrable. But our boy simply activates his tuning theory, dropping his spell's range and speed to absolute zero, funneling every single drop of his magical energy into raw, concentrated, destructive power, releasing a blinding point-blank blast that detonates with the force of a literal cannon, shattering the arrogant elite's unbreakable stone defense and sending him coughing up blood, leaving the thoroughly defeated bully to crash onto the dirt in a heap of broken rocks. Standing over his fallen opponent, Shindo coolly declares his intention to rewrite this world's unfair rules. Though back in the classroom, his classmates can't stop whispering about the absolute monster to their midst, prompting our boy to casually rest his chin on his hand, wondering if he overdid it. Shindo realizes he only has 1 year left to climb to the very top of the academy, but his internal planning is suddenly interrupted by a soft, hesitant voice from behind, revealing the purple-haired girl nervously asking if she can join him for lunch. Unfortunately, life in the bottom class is incredibly rough, especially when it comes to food, where a smug bully mocks the low-ranking students for not even being able to afford real meals, forcing them onto their knees like dogs while demanding absolute obedience from the bottom-tier trash. This arrogant jerk sneers that they need to stay down and let the elites rule. Suddenly, a precise blast of blue magic strikes the loudmouthed punk right where it hurts, leaving him completely paralyzed in absolute shock as his brain completely short-circuits from the pain, before his face is violently slammed face-first right into the bowl of dog food. This bully lies face down in the dirt, leaving the shocked onlookers completely speechless at the sudden beatdown, while Shindo stands casually in the distance, hiding behind a tree with a tiny spark of magic, proving his advanced tuning techniques can turn even a basic magic bullet into a long-range sniper shot, knowing that specializing mediocre spells is his ultimate ticket to climbing straight to the very top. Suddenly, the purple-haired girl nervously points out the massive risk of getting caught attacking another student, but our boy just laughs it off, pointing out that nobody suspects the weakest kid in school. With the annoying pests finally dealt with, Shindo casually invites her to sit down and eat, leading the pair to enjoy a quiet, peaceful lunch together under the shade of a massive tree, where she softly thanks him for saving her from the brutal bullies the day before. Though Shindo simply takes a bite of his food, telling her not to worry about it, Shindo casually points out that hanging out with a low-ranking loser like him will only draw trouble, but the polite girl insists she just wanted to properly thank him for saving her life, prompting our boy to quietly study her face, realizing she actually has a heart of gold. Taking another bite of his lunch, he casually compliments her for being so incredibly conscientious, while she quietly nibbles on her snack, completely unaware of the memories swirling in his head. Turns out, Shindo never actually spoke to her during his original run at the Magic Academy, though they eventually became incredibly close years later while he was desperately researching his tuning theory, since she was one of the very few rare skill owners willing to help him out. Snapping back to the present, Shindo casually asks Kagami about the upcoming practical pair exam next week, leaving the quiet girl to look up in surprise before softly confirming his suspicious question. Shindo casually asks Kagami to pair up, leaving the quiet girl completely stunned by the sudden proposal. Knowing that powerful skills never awaken later in life, our boy realizes she already possesses her legendary power, when she nervously asks why he would ever choose to team up with a low-ranking student. Our boy drops a massive truth bomb, revealing she actually possesses the legendary mystic eyes of stasis. This sudden revelation sends Kagami into a total panic as she wonders how he discovered her deepest secret. He calmly explains that mystic eyes are incredibly rare, making her low-ranking placement a complete joke. This young prodigy extends a welcoming hand while she stares up in complete disbelief. A partnership like this would be an absolute game-changer, making her rare abilities incredibly valuable to him. Kagami hesitates, looking down as she struggles to find the words to respond to his offer. She quietly admits to having a rare skill but still considers herself a useless underachiever. Shindo explains that in this world, a mage's worth is permanently decided by their starting skills, pointing out that while the average person is blessed with at least 4 unique abilities, revealing that he only possesses a single bottom-tier magic bullet spell to his name. Kagami looks down, admitting she hid her legendary eyes out of sheer terror of everyone's expectations, fearing that having a rare skill but only 2 usable abilities would make her a target, dreading the thought of her peers whispering about how useless she is despite her rare gift, leaving her completely paralyzed by the fear of facing reality and failing to meet their standards. While she buries her face in her knees, Shindo listens with a surprisingly serious expression, suddenly calling out her name to snap her right out of her deep spiral of self-doubt, before casually announcing his master plan to get promoted straight to Class B during the next exam. Shindo extends his hand, inviting the hesitant girl to join forces for the upcoming exam, but he warns her that their biggest obstacle will be the Academy's notorious clusters, leaving Kagami completely puzzled as she tilts her head in absolute confusion at the term. Our boy patiently explains that bottom-tier Class D students are never recruited by these elite groups, describing them as corrupt student factions designed to monopolize all the top grades for themselves, which includes coordinating massive telepathic cheating rings during the written portions of the tests, while also rigging the practical combat matches in advance to guarantee high scores for members. Although Kagami wonders if this blatant cheating is illegal, Shindo points out the teachers are heavily bribed, hinting at a mysterious, shadowy mastermind known as the King of the Clusters running the show, making it safe to assume that almost every single elite student is part of this corrupt system. Kagami nervously points out that the corrupt clusters will cheat with massive groups, but Shindo just flashes a confident smirk, ready to lay out his master plan. Meanwhile, a desperate student runs through the courtyard, chasing after a powerful red-haired elite, begging this ruthless cluster leader named Nayo to grant him a second chance. Hoping to use the cluster's influence for revenge, the desperate boy is cut off by a brutal punch, sending him crashing onto the hard pavement as his nose explodes in a shower of blood. Nayo furiously demands to know why he should ever waste his precious time helping Class D trash, leaving the battered student to pathetically apologize while clutching his broken, bleeding face, before the ruthless bully coldly walks away, warning the weakling to never order him around again. Still, as Neo strides off, he can't help but wonder about the mysterious new powerhouse named Shindo. Neo sneers that if this new upstart keeps acting cocky, he can't just ignore him, especially since he proudly considers himself the undisputed king of this entire magic academy. Soon after, the students gather in a massive hall as the exam is about to begin, with the hooded instructor stepping forward to announce the start of the practical training exercise, explaining that everyone must clear the designated dungeon alongside their pre-registered partners. This academy-managed dungeon is packed with various monsters, each carrying different point values based on difficulty, meaning students must land the final blow on a beast to secure those precious points, while their final grade will be calculated by combining the total scores of both partners. As the tension in the room reaches a boiling point, the competitors brace themselves for chaos, before the instructor raises his hand to officially kick off the high-stakes survival test. Students charge eagerly toward the glowing dungeon portal, shouting battle cries as the exam officially begins. Watching the crowd rush ahead, Kagami nervously points out that they are already falling behind. But before she can even finish her sentence, a sudden shove knocks her off balance. An arrogant student barks at her to stay out of the way, labeling them bottom-tier trash, while nearby, a shady gatekeeper whispers a grim warning to a passing classmate. This corrupt guard casually waves his allies through the portal, completely ignoring the academy's official rules, leaving the rest of the students to watch in frustration as the entrance is heavily guarded, with a wall of elite cluster members physically blocking the gateway to monopolize the entire dungeon. Shindo calmly analyzes the situation, realizing the elite set up a secret password system beforehand, meaning anyone outside their corrupt little circle gets completely locked out by this human barricade. This corrupt gatekeepers continue to block the entrance, forcing the lower-class students to fall behind, leaving Kagami to watch the chaos unfold in sheer panic as their chances slip away. But Shindo remains completely unfazed, casually telling his nervous partner not to worry about a thing. He flashes a devious smirk, perfectly content with letting those desperate fools rush ahead first, knowing that the overpowered Class A elites are completely sitting out of this practical exam, which means the playing field is wide open for him to exploit their absence. Meanwhile, the remaining students quickly group up to coordinate their entry into the dungeon, charging straight through the glowing portal to secure whatever points they can find, until our duo is left standing completely alone in the empty hall as the dust settles. Shindo calmly looks around the quiet room, casually noting that everyone has already gone ahead. Stepping through the glowing portal, Shindo casually decides it is finally time to make their move, and they immediately materialize inside a quiet, dimly lit forest clearing deep within the dungeon, where our boy reminds his nervous partner to strictly stick to their pre-arranged strategy. Nodding in agreement, Kagami takes a deep breath and activates her level 2 radar skill, projecting a glowing purple dome of energy that quickly blankets the immediate forest area. Suddenly, Shindo places a hand on her back to initiate his signature tuning magic, deliberately sacrificing the spell's overall accuracy and duration to optimize its raw potential, which instantly forces the purple grid to expand outward at an absolutely terrifying speed. This sudden boost leaves Kagami completely dumbfounded as she senses the massive new detection range, realizing his insane modifications just bypassed the normal, tedious limits of standard skill leveling. Kagami realizes that standard magic rules dictate skills only improve by leveling up, but Shindo's tuning completely breaks common sense by altering a skill's properties without leveling, allowing him to freely customize any spell's performance on the fly to suit his needs. She quickly realizes that if the world ever discovered his secret tuning ability, it would completely shatter the established laws of magic and turn society upside down. Unbothered by the stakes, our boy casually prepares to cast his next modified spell, reducing its raw power to 0 while reallocating those stats directly into maximum range, which manifests as a specialized hover-type magic bullet floating gently in front of him. Multiple glowing orbs suddenly scatter across the massive radar dome, creating a perfect detection grid, before he suddenly leaps forward to put his master plan into motion. Shindo leaps high into the air, using his modified magic bullets as literal stepping stones. Kagami watches in absolute awe, completely stunned by his ability to turn basic spells into footholds. By stripping away their offensive power, our boy easily secures the high ground without breaking a sweat. Suddenly, he calls out her name to signal that it is finally time to execute their plan, and she immediately responds with a determined nod, ready to unleash her hidden potential. Activating her legendary Mystic Eyes of Stasis, a glowing golden clock pattern manifests over her eye, instantly freezing Shindo's momentum midair as he suddenly locks into a completely rigid pose. But instead of panicking, our boy just flashes a satisfied grin at her perfect execution. This legendary skill possesses the unique ability to completely freeze the movement of anything she looks at, meaning that by targeting his shoes instead of his body, she can safely suspend him in midair. Shindo floats effortlessly in midair, realizing that gliding is far more efficient than constantly creating footholds, since trying to aim while constantly spawning magical stepping stones is just a massive headache, which is why he decides to activate his game-breaking tuning magic once again, stripping away his spell's raw power to maximize its projectile speed and targeting range, before calling out to his partner to get a lock on their unsuspecting targets. Kagami immediately feeds him the exact coordinates of every single monster lurking in the dark forest, prompting our boy to flash a satisfied smirk as his perfect setup falls into place, unleashing a barrage of modified sniper-style magic bullets that rain down from the night sky, lighting up the dark canopy with a brilliant flash of high-speed magical artillery, instantly piercing straight through multiple dungeon beasts to secure them a massive pile of easy points. Another dungeon beast screeches in agony as it gets vaporized by Shindo's sniper magic, prompting our smug protagonist to casually note that they already have 3 easy kills down before he decides it is time to quickly relocate to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Unfortunately, a group of hostile students suddenly drops from the trees to ambush them, with heavy footsteps echoing through the clearing as the attackers quickly close the distance, leaving our duo completely surrounded by 4 rival mages looking for an easy fight. While Kagami panics at the sudden trap, Shindo remains deadpan and assesses their opponents, who immediately unleash a barrage of elemental spells to blast our heroes to pieces. Reacting instantly, Shindo shoves his partner out of the danger zone to protect her, just as the combined magical attacks obliterate the ground where they stood a second ago. This lead attacker sneers confidently, claiming he predicted exactly where our boy would dodge, leaving Kagami to scream his name in absolute terror as the deadly trap closes in. But Shindo doesn't even flinch, casually letting a massive boulder graze right past his face, which only infuriates the attacker further as he unleashes another explosive burst of earth magic, blowing up the entire clearing in a violent shower of shattered rocks and blinding dust. Expecting an easy victory, the smug bully is instantly horrified to see his target standing completely unharmed, as our protagonist calmly points out that the spell fell exactly 3 centimeters short of its maximum range. This insane calculation leaves the entire ambush squad sweating bullets, unable to comprehend his godlike memory. Desperately trying to cope, the leader tries to convince himself that it was just a lucky fluke. Yet the terrifying reality of facing a monster who memorized every spell in existence slowly sinks in. This lead attacker trembles in absolute disbelief, realizing he is facing a literal monster in human form. Shindo calmly points out their cheap strategy of teaming up across different pairs to sabotage rivals, while warning them that since they chose to pick a fight, he has no reason to hold back. Instantly activating his game-breaking tuning magic, a brilliant blue light begins to gather in his palm, prompting the panicked leader to desperately summon his rock armor in a futile attempt to defend himself. But Shindo is way too fast, unleashing a split-second magic bullet barrage that completely overwhelms the squad, leaving all 4 attackers face down on the dirt as our boy casually tells them to go protect themselves. Suddenly, Shindo pauses as a strange detail from their brief exchange catches his attention, with the battered bully laughing hysterically while explaining that the entire exam was rigged from the start, revealing that the corrupt elites have already monopolized all the monsters to hoard the points for themselves. This battered bully sneers hysterically, claiming there are absolutely no points left in this entire dungeon. Hearing this, Kagami clenches her fist in despair, believing her chance to finally change has completely slipped away. Still sneering, the bleeding jerk continues to mock her, barking that bottom-tier trash like her could never improve, until a sudden, high-speed magic bullet snipes him right in the forehead to shut him up. Our boy calmly reassures his panicked partner, explaining that everything is still going exactly according to his calculations. She wonders how they can possibly salvage this, prompting him to suggest exploiting their enemy's inherent organizational weakness. He notes that while a massive group looks intimidating, destroying one key assumption will make them crumble. Leading her to a high cliff overlooking the forest, our protagonist decides they have reached the perfect vantage point. With absolute focus, the young mage peers down into the darkness, scanning the area for their unsuspecting targets, revealing a massive gathering of elite students hoarding all the dungeon monsters in a single tight formation. Looking down from the high cliff, our duo spots the massive gathering of elite students below. Kagami nervously whispers that the enemy's tight defense is completely locked down and impossible to breach. But Shindo just flashes a confident smirk, casually claiming he has the perfect counter ready. Concentrating his modified magic into a single finger, he prepares to shatter their entire strategy. He unleashes a blinding beam of high-speed energy that shoots straight down into the valley, instantly piercing right through one of the flying beasts the elites were trying to hoard, leaving the blue bird monster to screech in agony as it coughs up blood, before it crashes heavily onto the grass right in front of the stunned elite squad. This panicked bullies immediately look around in sheer confusion, desperately trying to locate the sniper, only to spot 2 tiny silhouettes standing proudly on the massive cliff far above them. Shindo knows that stretching his tuning magic to extreme ranges drastically reduces its overall speed and power, but it is still more than enough to easily steal kills from already weakened dungeon beasts, which immediately triggers absolute panic among the greedy elites as they watch their precious points vanish. Desperate to salvage their score, some try to focus on hunting while others demand immediate retaliation, instantly causing their fragile alliance to shatter as they start violently accusing each other of greed, leaving the entire group to descend into a chaotic free-for-all of friendly fire and screaming. Our protagonist calmly explains that their massive coalition only functions when everyone gets an equal slice of the pie, meaning that cooperation quickly turns into a luxury they can no longer afford without enough loot. And by stealing their hard-earned monsters, our boy has effectively starved them of their shared profits, forcing the selfish bullies to turn on one another in a desperate bid to protect their own grades. Kagami watches in absolute disbelief, realizing how effortlessly Shindo played the entire elite crowd. She still cannot wrap her head around how a literal god-tier genius ended up in D class. Meanwhile, all the scattered elites try to salvage their exam, only for one to get suddenly mauled. His terrified teammates spin around in sheer panic, completely clueless about what just hit them. Cold sweat drips down their faces as they slowly look up into the dark canopy, revealing a colossal shadow-cloaked bear monster that towers over them like a walking nightmare. Hearing the brutal screams from across the valley, Kagami squeals in terror and clings to Shindo. Our boy merely clicks his tongue, annoyed that a massive threat decided to crash their party, especially since the beast's glowing red eyes radiate a pressure unlike any normal dungeon monster, confirming that a highly dangerous, mutated irregular boss has officially entered the chat. An official warning flashes as the massive irregular bear lets out a deafening roar, prompting the Academy's faculty to scramble through emergency portals to handle the threat, while Kagami trembles in fear, realizing they are dealing with a literal natural disaster. Shindo calmly analyzes the situation, noting how these rare mutations occur inside unstable dungeons, explaining that this beast likely hid from the teachers for years to grow in secret, meaning its power level completely breaks the intended difficulty of their little school exam. When his partner nervously asks what he is doing, our boy claims he is no hero, yet he refuses to sit back and watch his classmates get absolutely slaughtered, ordering Kagami to stay safely hidden in the shadows until the entire exam is over, while the massive beast slams the ground below, sending the greedy elites flying without mercy. Leaping straight off the high cliff, Shindo realizes this incoming battle has nothing to do with their exam, while warning his partner to stay back because he refuses to let her get dragged into danger. Kagami desperately reaches out and screams his name, completely powerless to stop his reckless descent. Down in the dark valley, absolute chaos erupts as terrified students scramble to escape with their lives, running in sheer panic while a massive shadow looms over them like an unstoppable force of nature. This colossal irregular bear lets out a deafening roar, its glowing red eyes locked onto its next target, cornering a helpless student who can only stare up in absolute horror as death closes in. Suddenly, Shindo drops right into the danger zone, calmly preparing to activate his game-breaking tuning magic, sacrificing every bit of his spell's range and projectile speed to maximize its raw destructive power before standing tall against the giant beast to unleash a point-blank magic bullet of pure devastation. Shindo deploys his modified bulwark shield magic to block the giant bear's massive claw, saving the terrified student. This saved student stares in absolute disbelief, unable to comprehend how anyone could stop that monster, while nearby classmates watch in sheer shock as a supposedly weak student blocks a literal natural disaster. Even with his perfect defense, Shindo feels his arm going completely numb from the sheer kinetic force. Yet our smug protagonist just flashes a wild grin, thrilled to finally face a worthy opponent. This colossal beast doesn't give him time to celebrate, immediately rearing back for another devastating strike, forcing Shindo to swiftly backflip out of the way as massive claws tear through the air, landing gracefully on his feet while casually mocking the monster for actually having some decent speed. Before the bear can recover, our boy instantly activates his game-breaking tuning magic once again, unleashing a point-blank piercing power shot that blasts right into the giant beast's chest. This devastating blast merely leaves a tiny scorch mark on the beast's thick hide, as its glowing red eye locks onto Shindo with pure, unadulterated rage. Our boy sighs, realizing his level 1 magic bullet still lacks the raw firepower to pierce it, while the colossal monster lets out a deafening roar that shakes the entire forest. It lunges forward with a massive claw swipe, forcing Shindo to quickly retreat. Realizing that standard point-blank attacks are completely useless against this tanky beast, which means this fight is about to become a massive pain in his neck. Deciding to take a massive gamble, he charges straight back into the danger zone, leaping high into the air to aim his glowing finger directly at its open maw, as he flashes a smug grin, ready to unleash a truly ridiculous amount of power. Shindo fires a point-blank shot directly into the giant bear's glowing red eye, causing the massive beast to screech in agony as blood bursts from the wound. But our boy quickly realizes his desperate attack didn't do nearly enough damage. Enraged by the pain, the colossal monster swings its massive claws in a blind fury, forcing Shindo to dodge while worrying about the defenseless student kneeling right behind him, so he decides to draw the beast's aggro away to keep the kid safe, running in the opposite direction while the injured classmate groans in sheer terror. Yet our protagonist quickly realizes his defensive strategy is putting them both in extreme danger, especially since his bulwark shield magic won't deploy fast enough to block the next strike. Left with no other choice, Shindo braces his arms to tank the incoming blow directly. Just as the massive claw is about to crush him, a sudden spell freezes the beast mid-swing. Shindo looks down in shock, realizing his own uniform has been instantly hardened into a protective shell, which easily deflects the colossal bear's strike and forces the giant monster to stagger backward. Turning around, our boy is stunned to see Kagami sprinting straight back into the danger zone, her glowing eye revealing she used stasis magic to turn his clothes into makeshift armor. She boldly declares her refusal to run away, determined to finally change her cowardly past self, prompting Shindo to playfully remind her that playing the hero here offers absolutely zero rewards. Smiling through her fear, she insists on doing everything she can instead of just hiding away, hoping they can buy just enough time for the Academy's teachers to finally show up. Hearing this, our smug protagonist flashes a wild grin, fully on board with her reckless plan. Standing his ground, our boy calmly points out that she got one major detail completely wrong, because he has absolutely zero intention of ever jumping into a fight he cannot win. Flashing a smug grin as he realizes his hidden metric has finally reached its peak, suddenly a massive torrent of blue magical energy erupts around him, leaving Kagami completely speechless. As he prepares to unleash a newly upgraded level 2 version of his signature magic bullet, she frantically tries to process how his basic level 1 spell suddenly evolved right before her eyes, wondering if he somehow triggered a mid-combat skill awakening at this exact life-or-death moment. Turns out, our genius protagonist spent his entire life researching the absolute fastest ways to level up, knowing that facing a high-level boss with a deep understanding of your own magic is key, and with both conditions finally met, his game-breaking upgrade is officially ready to obliterate the beast. Shindo channels his newly upgraded level 2 magic, pouring every ounce of energy into his finger. He activates his specialized piercing power shot, ready to unleash absolute devastation on the beast. This colossal bear lunges forward blindly, completely unaware that it is staring down its own demise. With a confident smirk, our boy fires a blinding beam of concentrated magical energy straight ahead. This massive laser pierces clean through the monster's thick hide, leaving a gaping chest wound, causing the giant irregular boss to screech in agony as blood sprays across the forest floor. As the smoke clears, our protagonist stands completely unfazed by the sheer destruction he just caused, while the colossal beast collapses heavily onto the grass, officially defeated by a D-class student. Kagami can only stare in absolute disbelief, realizing his upgraded spell is on a completely different level. Suddenly, an official announcement echoes through the valley, declaring that the chaotic exam has finally concluded. Kagami gasps in surprise as the exam ends, while Shindo realizes his time is officially up, worrying that defeating a 0-point irregular monster won't be enough to secure his B-class promotion, though he quickly shrugs it off, simply glad that everyone managed to survive the ordeal. Meanwhile, the Academy's faculty members gather around the massive, defeated beast in absolute shock, with Shindo's own homeroom teacher sweating bullets and refusing to believe his worst student did this, instantly accusing our boy of cheating to protect his own fragile ego and reputation. Fortunately, a bald faculty member immediately roasts him for always doubting his own students, before turning to the head examiner to discuss how they should handle this unprecedented situation. Since the recording clearly proves Shindo saved everyone, the bald teacher argues for a rule change, deciding to award our protagonist massive bonus points for prioritizing safety over his own score. This head examiner gasps in shock as he calculates the final results of the exam, revealing that our dynamic duo officially secured first place and earned their promotion to B-class. Kagami practically glows with pure joy, unable to contain her excitement over their massive achievement, especially since their new rank grants them access to the Academy's incredibly luxurious cafeteria meals, which are a massive step up from the garbage food they serve down in D-class. Suddenly, Shindo freezes mid-bite as a wave of intense nostalgia hits him out of nowhere, prompting him to start inhaling his food like a man possessed while Kagami watches in concern, remembering how his past life was spent starving in cardboard boxes just to fund his magic research. But their peaceful lunch is abruptly cut short when a massive shadow looms over their table, demanding to know if our boy is indeed the legendary D-class rookie who broke the exam. Kagami freezes in absolute shock as she recognizes the intimidating student looming over their lunch table, while Shindo merely offers a tense smile, instantly sensing the massive ego walking right up to them. Because this red-haired elite is none other than the undisputed king of their academic cluster, who flashes a smug grin, clearly pleased that his terrifying reputation has preceded him. Sitting down at their table without an invitation, the arrogant senior quickly corrects their assumptions, boldly declaring that he isn't just a big deal in their cluster, but the entire academy's ruler, before locking his sharp eyes onto Shindo, revealing he watched the footage of yesterday's chaotic exam, and casually admitting that our D-class protagonist actually possesses some highly impressive skills. Unfazed by the dramatic entrance, Shindo simply pops a meatball into his mouth with a dry thank you, prompting the self-proclaimed king to point his knife at Kagami and question their future partnership. Kagami watches the tense exchange in absolute silence, completely overwhelmed by the heavy atmosphere, while Shindo narrows his eyes, demanding to know what this arrogant senior is actually implying, who casually cuts into his steak while warning that their lucky streak won't last forever. Our boy immediately sees through the threat, realizing this is just a poorly disguised recruitment attempt, prompting him to bluntly ask what happens if he decides to reject the offer. This self-proclaimed king glares back with glowing red eyes, delivering a cold, unmistakable threat, but Shindo merely sighs in disappointment, pushing his chair back to leave the table, picking up his tray while warning the elite to keep his petty drama to himself. Yet our protagonist suddenly pauses mid-step, turning back to deliver one final parting shot, boldly declaring that B-class was never his endgame because he plans to climb much higher. This red-haired elite stares in absolute disbelief, completely caught off guard by our boy's sheer audacity, since Shindo calmly declares his ultimate goal is to climb straight into their elite special selection class, prompting the self-proclaimed king to burst into a fit of arrogant, mocking laughter. He casually rates our protagonist a flat 0 as a potential subordinate, though he admits Shindo's suicidal level of confidence makes for some highly entertaining drama. Leaning in close, the elite menacingly whispers Shindo's full name to make sure he remembers this face, but our unbothered protagonist simply walks away with Kagami, leaving the school's ruler standing there, while a group of nervous lackeys watch their boss eat his lunch in tense silence. Two of these sycophants quickly approach Jin Neo, eager to teach the cocky rookie a lesson, only to be instantly shut down by their terrifying leader with a single icy command. Jin Neo snaps at his trembling lackey, warning him to keep his pathetic opinions to himself, prompting the terrified sycophant to bow in absolute submission, while apologizing for his utter foolishness, as the red-haired elite muses that crushing Shindo too quickly would ruin all his fun. Suddenly, the arrogant ruler senses a powerful presence approaching from just down the hallway, spotting a familiar blue-haired girl and realizing the timing couldn't possibly be more perfect, flashing a sinister grin as he decides to sick this terrifying force directly on our boy. This mysterious beauty is none other than Himekawa Hasame, the undisputed strongest student in the entire academy. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, the chaotic school day is finally wrapping up for our duo, leaving Kagami to let out a massive sigh of relief as she packs away her notes, until Shindo approaches her desk, casually pointing out that she looks completely exhausted from their ordeal. Kagami admits the new B-class curriculum is way tougher than anything they faced in D-class, but Shindo casually shrugs it off, claiming this level of study is absolutely nothing to him, before Kagami's attention is suddenly drawn to the hostile whispers echoing across the classroom. Turns out their jealous classmates are already gossiping about how a bottom-tier loser suddenly got promoted, leaving Kagami looking completely dejected by the harsh rumors spreading around them. Seeing her distress, our unbothered protagonist gently pats her shoulder to calm her down, confidently reminding her that consistent results are the only thing that will ever change people's minds. But their quiet moment is suddenly interrupted by a massive commotion echoing from the hallway. Shindo glances over in surprise as the classroom door slides open to reveal a massive presence. Spotting Himekawa Hisame, the legendary top-ranked A-class genius who just stepped directly into their territory, Shindo recognizes her as the absolute genius who has held the academy's top spot for 3 years, leaving our boy sweating bullets as he wonders why this legendary powerhouse is standing in his classroom. She casually announces to the stunned class that she is searching for a specific student, only to immediately blank out and admit she completely forgot the person's name. It seems this legendary genius apparently traded her memory skills for raw magical power, as she dismisses the entire room, claiming nobody here looks strong enough to bother with anyway. Her brutal honesty leaves the B-class students completely speechless and deeply offended, before she casually turns on her heel to leave, offering a half-hearted apology for wasting her time. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to her from the back of the room, with our smug protagonist stepping forward to ask if the name she forgot was Shindo Ikki. This legendary genius locks eyes with our boy, completely caught off guard by his sudden introduction. She scratches her head in mild confusion, casually admitting that his name does sound somewhat familiar. Taking a bold step forward, Shindo Ikki reveals he was actually hoping to cross paths with her too, before confidently issuing a direct duel challenge to the undisputed strongest student in the entire academy. Knowing full well that this blue-haired prodigy is destined to rule the entire magical world someday, our protagonist clenches his fist in anticipation, eager to test his newly upgraded magic against her absolute power. But their intense standoff quickly draws a massive crowd of gossiping students in the hallway. Suddenly, a highly distinguished blonde student wearing glasses and a pristine white uniform pushes through the crowd, leaving the surrounding onlookers completely starstruck as they recognize the Academy's prestigious student council president. Shirasaya Sojiro calmly adjusts his glasses, demanding to know why the top-ranked genius is wasting her time here. Hisame casually scratches her head, realizing this random rookie actually wants to duel her, while the student council president points out that official duels are technically allowed on campus. Adjusting his glasses as he admits this sudden development is getting highly entertaining. Suddenly, the red-haired elite struts in, mockingly encouraging the genius to humor our boy's challenge, prompting the suspicious president to demand what kind of game the arrogant senior is playing. But Hisame simply sighs in exhaustion, realizing she just needs to accept to get this over with, planning to wrap up this annoying fight instantly so she can finally go home. Watching his chaotic plan fall perfectly into place, the red-haired troublemaker flashes a sinister smirk, boldly asking the glare-heavy president if they finally have an official agreement for the match, before the scene shifts to the massive training grounds where the epic showdown is about to unfold. Shindo stands face-to-face with the legendary genius and the student council president on the dusty training grounds, while Jin, Neo, and Kagami watch from the sidelines, eager to see how this madness unfolds. But the blonde president admits he still doesn't understand the reasoning behind this sudden clash, questioning if Shindo actually has some personal grudge against the Academy's strongest student, since challenging her to a direct duel seems like a completely suicidal move for a rookie. Our unbothered protagonist simply smiles, explaining that his motivation is actually quite simple, wanting to test his newly upgraded magic against the absolute peak of the Academy's power, prompting the president to adjust his glasses as he finally respects our boy's sheer ambition, gently patting Shindo's shoulder while telling him to fight to his absolute heart's content, before turning his attention to the blue-haired genius to officially kick off the highly anticipated match. This student council president warns Hisame to hold back and avoid using her most destructive technique. She casually brushes it off, claiming she won't even need her best moves to win. Leaving the two opponents to face off, the president steps back to let the match begin. Meanwhile, the gossiping crowd watches from afar, fully expecting our cocky protagonist to get absolutely obliterated. Kagami clutches her hands in pure anxiety, silently praying that her partner survives this reckless stunt. Raising his arm high, the president prepares to give the official signal to start the duel. While both fighters lock eyes, their focus sharpening as the final countdown begins. With a loud shout, the match officially starts as both mages instantly raise their finger guns. Shindo fires a high-powered piercing magic bullet, while Hisame counters with her level 3 ice magic, sending two lethal streaks of energy clashing directly in the center of the dusty arena. These spells collide in a blinding flash, sending shockwaves rippling across the dusty arena, while Shindo stands completely unfazed as the magical debris rains down around him, forcing the legendary genius to grunt in surprise from the sheer force of the impact. Smoke clears to reveal she actually had to defend herself against a basic rookie spell, leaving her staring in absolute silence as she processes this unexpected turn of events, prompting our smug protagonist to ask if he has finally earned her undivided attention. Though the blue-haired prodigy merely glares back, her lazy demeanor completely vanishing. Meanwhile, the gossiping crowd loses their minds over a basic magic bullet matching elite ice magic, as Kagami cheers from the sidelines, absolutely thrilled to see her partner holding his own. But Shindo knows the real fight is just beginning, refusing to let his guard down. Shindo aims to land a decisive hit to take complete control of the battle, unleashing a speed-specialized magic bullet designed to catch his opponent off guard. But the blue-haired genius effortlessly dodges the projectile with a simple fluid tilt, leaving our boy stunned that his fastest attack couldn't even graze her clothes. Pivoting instantly, he unleashes a wide-range area attack to cover all her escape routes. Yet she dances through the barrage of lasers like she is taking a casual stroll, before closing the distance to deliver a lightning-fast kick that he barely manages to block, sending him sliding across the dusty arena as he struggles to maintain his balance. Grimacing in frustration, our protagonist realizes none of his calculated moves are landing, until he notices her glowing gaze, finally deducing the secret behind her absolute evasion. Turns out, Hisame possesses a legendary cheat code known as the Mystic Eyes of Perception, which explains why our boy is currently sweating bullets trying to land a single hit, as those glowing pink eyes allow her to read the battlefield like an open book, letting her instantly perceive the exact trajectory of any hostile intent directed her way, meaning she can effortlessly dodge his attacks with her insanely enhanced reflexes. With her basic defensive style fully explained, she prepares to launch a counterattack, casually firing a lethal shard of ice magic straight at our protagonist. But Shindo quickly deploys a specialized magic shield to block the incoming projectile. Still, he realizes that raw speed alone will never bypass her absolute perception, forcing him to craft a brilliant plan to exploit the blind spot of her power. Hisame quickly notices something incredibly bizarre about the magic bullets our boy is throwing at her, realizing that every single projectile has a slightly different speed and power level, which completely debunks her initial theory that he was just swapping between basic spell tiers. Instead, he is actively customizing countless variations of his attacks to fit the exact situation. But the blue-haired genius flashes a smirk as she spots a massive flaw in his strategy, deducing that his high-power shots are always slow, while his faster projectiles lack any real punch. Since the heavy hitters are incredibly easy to dodge, she decides to completely ignore them, prompting Shindo to unleash a massive, high-powered penetration blast directly at her face, allowing her to effortlessly bypass it to close the distance and end the match. Completely unaware that she is walking straight into our protagonist's brilliant tactical trap, Shindo explains that those legendary eyes work by reading the hostile intent embedded in an attack, meaning they are completely useless against any projectile launched without any direct malice. Suddenly, he unleashes a bizarre curving trajectory shot that completely defies her expectations, catching the blue-haired genius completely off guard as she struggles to read its path. She lets out a rare gasp of shock as the unexpected blast grazes her, while our smug protagonist calmly explains he was waiting for her to underestimate his slower attacks. Turns out her cheat code eyes are completely blind to irregular trajectories that lack direct caster intent, prompting Shindo to raise his finger gun with absolute confidence, ready to end this, reminding her that knowing an attack is coming means nothing if you cannot physically dodge it, forcing the panicked genius to desperately initiate her ultimate ice spell before getting blasted away. Shindo desperately tries to fire his specialized burnout magic bullet to end the match, but his spell suddenly fizzles right at his fingertips, leaving him completely dumbfounded, staring in absolute shock as he realizes his reliable magic bullet has completely misfired. At that exact moment, he notices Hisame's stance and realizes this isn't her doing, before a sudden, devastating blast of ice magic sends him flying backward through the air, crashing hard onto the dusty arena floor as his vision begins to spin. Raising his hand, the student council president officially declares the blue-haired genius the winner, leaving our defeated protagonist clutching his chest in frustration as he struggles to sit up, while the mocking crowd immediately laughs at his failure, chalking his recent promotion up to pure luck. Yet Shindo knows his mana reserves are perfectly fine, meaning something else blocked his magic. Shindo clutches the dirt, realizing someone deliberately sabotaged his magic right before he could fire. Kagami rushes over in a panic, desperately asking if he is okay after that brutal blast, brushing off the dirt as he assures her he is fine, though his pride is severely bruised. Meanwhile, the red-haired troublemaker clicks his tongue and prepares to leave with his loyal lackeys, who immediately start mocking our boy for being all talk and no actual skill, only for Jin Neo to turn back with a terrifying glare, asking if they seriously believe that nonsense, leaving his confused followers completely speechless as they struggle to understand his sudden anger. Suddenly, a sharp voice calls out his name, stopping the red-haired elite right in his tracks. This mysterious, white-haired girl steps forward, directly accusing him of interfering with the match, prompting him to scoff at the accusation, claiming he would never ruin his chance to gauge Shindo's power. Hisame casually brushes off the dramatic confrontation, muttering a lazy response as she turns to leave. Still, she admits our boy's performance left an impression, promising to remember the name Kazuki Shindo. Meanwhile, the red-haired elite scratches his head in frustration, annoyed that someone dared to ruin his fun, recalling that final bizarre strike with a look of intense curiosity in his eyes. Walking back together, Shindo casually discusses his next moves while Kagami listens with a worried expression. Back at the training grounds, the sinister senior smirks, eager to see how much entertainment our boy will provide. Later in the library, Kagami suddenly gasps in absolute delight, realizing she finally solved a complex magic formula. as the duo sits at a study table surrounded by towering shelves of ancient academy books, prompting Shindo to explain that skill mechanics actually share deep underlying principles rather than just random facts, leaving his partner completely stunned by his advanced knowledge that goes way beyond any standard academy textbook. Kagami's jaw drops in absolute shock, completely stunned that he has already mastered such advanced material. But Shindo casually shrugs it off, claiming his insane academic grind is just a simple hobby, prompting his grateful partner to bow deeply while thanking him for tutoring her through this nightmare. Since passing this brutal exam is her only ticket to staying enrolled in the elite academy, our protagonist reminds her that failure means instant expulsion, making a high score their absolute priority, when suddenly a clumsy student nearby reaches out to grab a cup of water, aiming to take a quick sip right next to their precious study materials, only for Shindo to instantly intercept the cup with a terrifyingly intense dark aura, leaving the intruder sweating bullets as our boy delivers a cold, deadpan warning, reminding him that open drinks are strictly forbidden inside the sacred walls of the library. This clumsy student quickly backs away, muttering a nervous apology after getting caught red-handed. But our boy reveals the guy was waiting for the perfect moment to ruin their notes, sending Kagami into a panic as she realizes a rival faction is actively trying to sabotage them. Still, Shindo finds this petty interference incredibly childish for an elite group pulling the strings, and as the sun begins to set, the duo finally leaves the academy grounds behind. Walking home, Kagami beams with gratitude as she thanks him for dedicating his time to tutor her, though our humble protagonist casually brushes it off, claiming the session was great revision for himself too, prompting his partner to look at him with absolute admiration, praising both his brains and brawn, forcing Shindo to explain that even strong mages need top-tier grades to advance to the elite class, completely hiding the hilarious truth that he has actually been studying for an entire extra lifetime. Kagami notes that Shindo is working incredibly hard to reach the prestigious A class, prompting our protagonist to look back with a highly serious and determined expression, before explaining that reaching this elite rank is absolutely crucial for his ultimate goal, which turns out to be securing a spot at the legendary Tenjo University, leaving his partner completely speechless since it is the most prestigious academy in the country. Clenching his fist, he explains that he needs those top-tier credentials to change the world, aiming to make technique tuning a universal skill that absolutely anyone can master, since society's toxic obsession with rare skills will never change on its own, hoping to build a future where effort finally triumphs over raw, innate talent, even though the elite currently view his revolutionary tuning theories as complete heresy. He recalls his past life, where his revolutionary theories were dismissed as nothing but occult nonsense, which is why he desperately needs the kind of academic authority that society simply cannot ignore. Remembering how his lack of raw talent and credentials previously left his life's work completely forgotten, clenching his fist, our boy vows to permanently end this unfair era of talent-based discrimination, hoping to build a world where normal mages can actually pursue their dreams without giving up. Kagami quietly listens to his grand ambition, completely captivated by his selfless and revolutionary mindset, nervously fidgeting with her hands before softly admitting that he is truly an incredible person, smiling warmly as she confesses that her own goals are much simpler, merely hoping to graduate safely. But as she steps ahead under the glowing sunset, she looks back with a gentle smile, declaring she wants to look back on her academy days knowing she gave it her absolute all. Kagami humbly admits her graduation goal is tiny compared to his grand, world-changing dream, but Shindo just offers a warm, supportive smile that instantly puts her at ease, reassuring his partner that wanting a peaceful school life is actually a wonderful ambition. Meanwhile, a group of nervous lackeys stands at attention inside a private academy clubroom, where the red-haired elite Jin Neo sits like a king on his throne, listening to the clumsy library intruder report that he successfully disrupted Shindo's study session. However, the smug elite immediately flashes a terrifying grin, pointing out his obvious failure, leaving the panicked student sweating bullets as he struggles to find a good excuse. Stepping forward, Jin Neo casually tells his subordinate to relax and stop being so terrified, before unleashing a terrifying dark aura to ask if he has ever spared a failure. This terrified student desperately tries to deny his failure to the ruthless red-haired elite, but Jin Neo instantly slams his head onto the wooden table with brutal force, explaining that hiding a mistake is a sin he absolutely refuses to tolerate. Turning to his other lackey, the elite admits the library prank was just minor groundwork, revealing that Kazuki Shindo is the main course he plans to savor later, and he intends to completely break our protagonist's allies before delivering the final blow. Meanwhile, the dreaded exam day finally arrives, leaving Kagami sweating bullets in her seat, staring at the blank desk as absolute panic begins to consume her mind, realizing that a single mistake on this test will get her instantly expelled, while the strict examiner stands at the front, ready to distribute the brutal papers. This bald examiner calls time, ordering everyone in the room to put their pens down immediately. Shindo sits back in his chair, finding the entire testing process surprisingly quiet and anticlimactic, since he expected some aggressive interference from the red-haired elite instead of this peaceful silence. But just as the teacher gathers the completed test papers to finalize the exam, a random student suddenly raises her hand, interrupting the quiet classroom with a sharp call, prompting the strict examiner to pause and ask what could possibly be so urgent. Without hesitating, the accuser demands an immediate search of Kagami's desk right in front of everyone, boldly claiming that our purple-haired friend was caught red-handed cheating during the high-stakes test, leaving Kagami completely frozen in absolute terror as the malicious trap is finally sprung. While Shindo grits his teeth, realizing this petty framing is the elite's real plan to destroy them, Shindo instantly realizes this entire setup was designed to target his partner from the very beginning, as a random classmate jumps up to loudly claim she witnessed the cheating firsthand, prompting another student to immediately join the chorus of accusations with absolute certainty, while a third accomplice eagerly piles on to make the fabricated lie sound completely undeniable. Kagami stands frozen in sheer terror, her face turning completely pale as the trap closes in. Yet Shindo knows a powerful faction like Cluster can easily manipulate a crowd and plant evidence. This smug accuser steps forward, demanding to know what she is hiding underneath her desk, and as our panicked heroine desperately tries to defend herself, a suspicious object slips out, fluttering down to the floor right beside her feet with a highly dramatic rustle, revealing a perfectly detailed cheat sheet that instantly seals her fate as a dirty cheater. Kagami panics in absolute shock, desperately trying to explain that she has never seen this paper before. Meanwhile, the strict bald examiner demands to know if the serious cheating accusation is actually true. Staring down at the planted evidence, our purple-haired friend realizes she is completely cornered without an alibi. This teacher decides to investigate anyway, slowly walking down the aisle to inspect her desk personally. Tears well up in Kagami's eyes as she helplessly wonders why this nightmare is happening to her, knowing that getting caught with this fake cheat sheet means instant expulsion from the academy. Watching the drama unfold, Shindo quickly realizes he needs to vaporize that paper before the examiner sees it. Aiming his finger under the desk, he carefully tunes his magic to be completely silent and invisible. And with a quick calculation, our boy fires a highly compressed, low-power magic bullet across the floor, instantly incinerating the planted cheat sheet into harmless ash right before the teacher can even look down. Shindo smirks in absolute satisfaction, knowing his stealthy magic completely vaporized the planted evidence, while Kagami looks back at him with a mix of sheer relief and utter disbelief, prompting our boy to offer a subtle, confident grin that promises everything is under control. Bending down to inspect the floor, the bald examiner announces there is absolutely nothing there, sending the smug accuser into a total panic as her foolproof plan instantly falls apart. Since the physical evidence has vanished, the teacher declares they cannot officially prove any cheating occurred, though he admits that heavy rumors and sudden accusations still leave a lingering cloud of suspicion, proposing they analyze her test paper for any weird irregularities before making a final decision. This examiner schedules an official hearing in the guidance office to settle the matter once and for all, leaving Kagami with no choice but to quietly nod and accept the stressful investigation. During the lunch break, the classroom fills with nasty whispers targeting our poor purple-haired heroine, with classmates loudly mocking her and claiming that lower-class students are just naturally stupid, whispering that she only got into the B class by pure luck before throwing it all away, while others ruthlessly suggest she should just drop out instead of waiting for the official investigation. Shindo quietly observes the toxic atmosphere, realizing the Cluster faction has successfully turned the entire room against her, understanding that even if the framing fails, they will still succeed in making her school life a living hell. Although our protagonist usually stays out of petty drama, this underhanded psychological warfare is crossing a major line, unleashing a silent, terrifying fury inside him as he decides he has officially seen enough, prompting our boy to suddenly stand up and break the tense silence with a sharp, decisive movement, leaving a startled Kagami staring up at him in complete confusion as he prepares to make his move. Inside the private clubroom, several lackeys stand guard like mindless statues waiting for their boss, but the tense silence is shattered when Shindo suddenly kicks the door wide open, marching straight inside to confront the arrogant mastermind behind the pathetic classroom setup. Sitting comfortably on his leather throne, Jin Neo smugly welcomes our protagonist by name, mockingly bringing up the cheating drama as if he had absolutely nothing to do with it. Our boy doesn't waste any time directly accusing the red-haired elite of fabricating the entire scandal, which only makes the villainous leader flash an even wider, much more sinister grin, casually arguing that those lying accusers were actually brave heroes standing up for academic justice. Shindo quietly repeats the ridiculous claim, his face darkening as his patience completely runs out, before roasting the elite for preaching about courage while running a corrupt, cowardly student mafia. Jin Neo smugly challenges our protagonist, demanding actual proof that the cheating accusation is fake, flashing a malicious grin because he knows the kid has absolutely nothing to back up his claim, mockingly advising Shindo to go say his final goodbyes to his doomed partner, boasting that a student expelled without credentials is as good as dead in this ruthless society. Our boy quietly reflects on how these spoiled elites have never experienced true societal rejection, remembering the cold, desperate terror of his previous life ending in complete obscurity, before his eyes flash with a terrifying fury as he warns the villain not to mock him, prompting the red-haired elite to crack his knuckles while his terrified lackeys flinch in fear, leaning forward with a dark, murderous aura to ask if he wants to settle this right now. But Shindo calmly refuses to take the bait, vowing to protect Kagami without getting himself expelled. Shindo glares with absolute fury, warning the red-haired elite that he will deeply regret making him an enemy. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, the bald examiner officially dismisses homeroom for the day, but immediately calls out Kagami's name, sending a fresh jolt of panic straight through her, ordering her to report to the guidance office later to investigate her suspicious test answers, leaving our poor purple-haired heroine with no choice but to quietly accept her grim fate, while her toxic classmates eagerly whisper that this is the well-deserved end of her academy career. Suddenly, Shindo raises his hand to interrupt the teacher before the trap can fully close, prompting the strict examiner to turn around and demand what could possibly be so urgent, as our boy boldly stands up to announce he has a highly unusual proposal to make, specifically regarding the ridiculous cheating allegations that have completely ruined his partner's peaceful day. Shindo locks eyes with the teacher, confirming that absolutely zero physical evidence was actually found. This examiner agrees but insists on a hearing, only for our boy to suddenly cut him off, boldly declaring to the entire room that he actually suspects Kagami of cheating himself, leaving his purple-haired partner completely speechless as she stares at him in utter betrayal. Our protagonist smoothly explains that she must have used a stealthy magic skill to vaporize the evidence, proposing they run a specialized skill search on the desk to uncover any hidden magical residue. Kagami desperately wonders why her trusted ally is suddenly throwing her under the bus like this, but she quickly remembers that his own magic bullet was what actually destroyed the paper, realizing that a magic scan will actually trace the spell directly back to him instead, prompting her to clench her fist, determined not to let him ruin his future for her. Suddenly, a random classmate stands up to interrupt the tense standoff with a nervous shout, suggesting that the entire cheating scandal might have just been one giant misunderstanding, leaving Kagami completely stunned as the classroom dynamic suddenly begins to shift, with multiple witnesses suddenly backtracking and claiming they saw absolutely zero suspicious behavior, which sends the smug, red-eyed accuser into a state of pure, unadulterated panic, especially when another student points out that no physical evidence was actually found. Instantly, the toxic crowd flips their narrative, loudly agreeing that Kagami is far too innocent to cheat, forcing the mastermind's lackey to sweat bullets as her foolproof framing attempt completely falls apart, while her terrified accomplice frantically whispers that they need to abort the mission immediately, realizing that their pathetic little trap has officially blown up right in their faces. Realizing her trap has completely backfired, the main accuser gasps in sheer panic and quickly calls out to the teacher before Shindo's proposed magic scan can begin, bowing her head in a desperate attempt to save herself from getting caught. She frantically confesses to snooping through Kagami's desk without any sort of official permission, leaving our purple-haired heroine completely stunned by this sudden, bizarre turn of events. This panicked girl claims the paper she found was actually completely unrelated to the exam, which leaves the strict bald examiner utterly speechless at how quickly the case is collapsing. Squeezing out fake tears, she whimpers that she only stayed silent because things escalated so fast, before offering a dramatic apology to Kagami to officially put the entire matter to rest, allowing our duo to walk away completely unscathed as Shindo casually celebrates another flawless victory. Kagami looks completely bewildered, asking Shindo to explain what on earth just happened, since there was literally a planted cheat sheet sitting right inside her desk. She wonders why on earth the corrupt cluster members suddenly backtracked to defend her, prompting our smug protagonist to explain that the answer is actually incredibly simple, because those arrogant elites would be in massive trouble if a magic skill search occurred. Turns out, the entire faction relies on telepathy skills to secretly share exam answers, meaning a thorough magical investigation would immediately expose their own massive cheating ring. Shindo smirks, noting they had no choice but to completely drop the fake charges, admitting that proving her innocence through normal means was going to be practically impossible, so he bypassed the rules entirely to force a victory without needing any evidence. Walking away from the classroom, Shindo notices his purple-haired partner is trembling behind him, prompting our boy to stop in his tracks and ask what is wrong, as Kagami suddenly bursts into tears of pure relief while thanking him, admitting she genuinely believed her academic career was completely over this time, realizing she would have been expelled on the spot without his quick thinking. Gently patting her shoulder, Shindo calms her down with a reassuring gesture, casually brushing off his heroic stunt as just doing the right thing, before offering a warm smile that instantly makes her heart skip a beat. Meanwhile, back in the private clubroom, Jin Neo sits on his leather throne, when a lackey suddenly bursts in with Shindo's official test results in hand. Jin Neo stares at the paper in disbelief, reading that Shindo scored perfectly in every single subject, leaning back on his leather throne as he grudgingly admits the kid actually has a brilliant brain, realizing that securing first place in both exams officially qualifies him to challenge for an A-class promotion, since his petty traps and weak lackeys have completely failed to stop our protagonist. This red-haired elite throws the papers into the air, vowing to crush him with overwhelming power next time, flashing a sinister, toothy grin as he prepares to personally step onto the battlefield. Meanwhile, in a quiet school cafe, our duo enjoys a peaceful moment over some warm drinks, prompting a curious Kagami to ask if he is seriously planning to challenge the upcoming promotion battle, to which Shindo calmly takes a slow sip of his tea before offering a simple, confident nod, explaining that top-ranking B-class students are finally given the golden opportunity to officially advance to the A-class. Shindo explains that the promotion requires winning a duel against the 10th-ranked A-class student. He casually reminds Kagami that securing top marks in both exams gives him this exact right, pumping his fist with absolute confidence as he prepares to take his rightful place at the top. Kagami Sykes suddenly leaps up in excitement, promising to be his #1 cheerleader during the duel, which earns her a genuine, warm smile from our protagonist as he accepts her support. When she asks about his timeline, Shindo casually reveals he is heading out to fight right now, leaving her to nod happily for a brief second before the sheer absurdity of his words registers, prompting a delayed panic screech that echoes through the entire cafe as she completely loses her mind. Meanwhile, our boy calmly strolls down the campus path, completely unfazed by her dramatic reaction, checking his buzzing phone to confirm that the scheduled hour for his big showdown has finally arrived. Shindo stares at his phone, fully expecting the corrupt student mafia to try another dirty trick, so he decides to climb the ranks too fast for them to even try interfering. Checking his screen, he pulls up the profile of his target, the 10th-ranked A-class student, a guy named Tasei Kurumada, who looks like he takes himself way too seriously, relying on a heavy steel armor skill to turn himself into a slow-moving human tank. Noticing that his opponent is basically just a high-tier version of the rock-skin bully from before, meaning normal attacks won't even leave a scratch on his ridiculously thick defense. But our boy just smirks, fully prepared for a tough fight against an actual elite. Determined not to waste any time, he marches forward to claim his spot at the top, only to stop in his tracks as he opens the door and spots something unexpected. Shindo steps into the arena only to find a smug, brown-haired student waiting for him, leaving our boy completely confused since only the official duelists are allowed inside this chamber. But the mysterious elite calmly steps forward to confirm that exact rule with a smirk, casually announcing that his presence here means he is actually one of the fighters. Our boy quickly catches on to the scheme, letting out a sharp, knowing chuckle, realizing the corrupt student mafia wasted absolutely no time sending their top heavy hitters after him, specifically the Academy's 7th-ranked powerhouse, a dangerous elite named Akira Oshima. This smug elite proudly reveals that he officially became the 10th-ranked student just 10 minutes ago, prompting our protagonist to realize the guy intentionally threw a match just to get demoted, exploiting a massive loophole in the rules to force Shindo into a fight against a high-tier monster. Akira mocks our boy, claiming that sending a top-tier powerhouse shows how desperately Jin wants him crushed, shrugs casually as he admits he won't even pretend to feel bad about blocking his promotion, before questioning why Shindo was foolish enough to reject Cluster's invitation in the first place, demanding to know what our protagonist actually thinks of their corrupt little student mafia. This smug elite ponders, admitting the group isn't exactly righteous but offers too much safety to ignore, asking if hiding behind a powerful leader isn't already a good enough deal for him, prompting Shindo to flash a knowing smirk, realizing their core values are completely different, boldly declaring that his ultimate dream can never be achieved by simply following a corrupt crowd, since relying solely on a basic magic bullet skill means average grades won't cut it, explaining that Cluster is only meant for weaklings who are satisfied with just barely getting by. Shindo clenches his fist, explaining that he needs perfect grades to overcome his magic bullet handicap, since joining their corrupt little club would do absolutely nothing to help him reach his dream, which leaves the brown-haired elite quietly processing our boy's brutally honest declaration, admitting he cannot comprehend risking everything for a dream that seems so completely out of reach. Our protagonist just flashes a smug grin, reminding his opponent that he never asked for his understanding anyway. As the arena's automated system officially announces the start of their high-stakes promotion duel, sighing, Akira admits he absolutely hates taking risks and prefers to live a safe, comfortable life, warning our protagonist not to hold any grudges for the absolute beatdown that is about to happen. But our boy just laughs it off, promising he won't hold a grudge since he is winning anyway. And with the final countdown echoing through the chamber, the battle officially begins. Shindo wastes absolutely no time, immediately unleashing a rapid-fire barrage of magic bullets, only to watch his opponent effortlessly block the entire attack with a glowing hexagonal barrier, mockingly asking if our boy really expected his defenses to be weak at the start, proudly declaring himself the ultimate magic bullet killer since no projectile can ever bypass his shield. Undeterred, our protagonist points his finger right back, preparing to deliver another bold declaration, while Akira warns him not to hold any grudges regardless of how badly he gets crushed, as the massive defensive barrier fully deploys and wraps around the entire combat arena, leaving Kagami watching anxiously from the stands, silently praying for her partner's safety. When suddenly the surrounding crowd gasps in absolute shock as they notice two unexpected spectators, realizing that some of the Academy's highest-ranking elites have actually shown up to watch the fight. Up in the stands, the blonde glasses guy notes how rare it is for her to watch a duel, but she quickly brushes it off as nothing important while keeping her eyes glued to the arena. Adjusting his glasses, her companion quietly processes her unusual interest with a knowing look, wondering how a kid with only basic magic bullets can possibly bypass a specialized defensive counter. Still, he decides to watch the entire match unfold to see if the rumors are actually true. Meanwhile, Shindo analyzes the glowing green hexagonal barrier that automatically deploys to block his path, acknowledging that while an automated shield is incredibly useful, it still has one fatal flaw, so he immediately switches his strategy and unleashes a brand new ricochet mode to test his opponent, only for the level 3 defense system to easily deflect the bouncing projectiles from every single angle, prompting our unfazed protagonist to simply raise his hand again, ready to reveal his real trump card. Shindo summons 3 holographic green guns, ready to turn this magic duel into a literal shootout. Akira smugly points his weapon forward, declaring that it is finally his turn to attack. Realizing a direct shootout puts him at a massive disadvantage, Shindo quickly activates his barrier mode. Tilting his shield diagonally, he deflects the incoming barrage while planning his next move. Sprinting across the arena, our protagonist decides to close the distance to catch his opponent off guard. Up in the stands, Kagami cheers excitedly as she realizes he can now fire a power-focused shot. Unleashing his penetration mode, Shindo fires a concentrated blast directly at Akira's glowing green shield. This high-powered projectile collides violently with the defense, sending shockwaves rippling through the entire arena. But the smug elite just grins, revealing his level 3 barrier is far too durable to break, leaving our boy's ultimate attack completely neutralized as the massive shield holds perfectly firm. Kagami gasps in absolute disbelief as she watches Shindo's ultimate attack get completely shut down, while Akira smugly points out that bypassing his automated shield was only the first step, explaining that he simply needs to keep our protagonist at a distance to guarantee his victory. Refusing to back down, Shindo immediately fires a ricochet shot to test his opponent's reflexes, but the elite easily sidesteps the projectile, mocking its sluggish speed with casual disdain, only for the bouncing bullet to suddenly strike the wall and redirect at a sharp angle, catching Akira completely off guard as it arcs right back toward his blind spot. Up in the stands, Kagami watches with bated breath, hoping this clever trick will finally connect. Unfortunately, the automated barrier instantly deploys behind the elite to absorb the surprise impact, leaving our boy to quietly analyze his options after his best tactical play falls short. Akira smugly notes he already saw Shindo's trajectory-changing trick in his previous duel, boasting that his automated defense system easily blocks attacks he cannot even react to, which means any attempt at a clever sneak attack is completely dead on arrival. Unfazed by the trash talk, Shindo immediately switches his magic bullets into rapid-fire mode, unleashing a massive, spiraling stream of energy that tears straight across the battlefield. But the smug elite just stands there, trusting his level 3 barrier to absorb the impact. Suddenly, his smug grin completely vanishes as a tiny crack weblines across his perfect shield, shattering his ultimate defense into a million useless pieces and leaving him completely exposed, prompting Kagami to leap up in the stands, celebrating his brilliant breakthrough with absolute joy, while Shindo's high-powered blast slams directly into Akira's chest to finish the job. Akira admits that the sudden breakthrough actually managed to catch him off guard, but his brief moment of shock quickly melts back into a smug, confident grin, revealing he possesses a passive magic resistance skill that heavily dampens any incoming spell damage. Shindo watches in disbelief as the elite points a mocking finger right at him, casually declaring that our boy's signature magic bullets stand absolutely zero chance of winning, leaving Kagami completely horrified in the stands as she realizes the massive gap in power. Internally, Akira admits he is genuinely impressed by Shindo's ability to fight using only basic spells, realizing that if our protagonist had even one other skill, the outcome would be different. Confident in his 99% chance of victory, he summons his glowing green weapon, immediately rushing forward to finish the fight without giving his opponent any room to breathe. Akira maintains his distance, relentlessly firing to slowly wear our boy down to nothing. Shindo realizes this guy is on a completely different level from any previous opponent, forcing our boy to constantly defend against a relentless barrage of high-speed projectiles. Up in the stands, Kagami watches in horror as her partner gets pushed back, silently praying for him to somehow survive this absolute nightmare of a matchup, while Shindo struggles to find an opening through the opponent's flawless defensive strategy. Unlike prideful elites, this pragmatic fighter refuses to panic or make any reckless moves, leaving our boy with no choice but to finally reveal his hidden trump card, flashing a confident smirk as he prepares to unleash a secret high-tier technique, ready to shatter his opponent's perfect defense and turn the entire battle around. Shindo confidently prepares his next move, ready to unleash a completely unexpected tactical maneuver, leaving Akira utterly bewildered as he tries to anticipate what kind of trick is coming next. But our boy simply charges up his energy, letting the glowing projectile fade into nothingness. This sudden disappearance sends a jolt of pure panic straight through the smug elite's mind, right before a massive, unseen force violently detonates directly against his face with a loud blast. Coughing through the smoke, the stunned powerhouse struggles to comprehend how he even got hit, prompting Shindo to flash a wicked grin as he casually reveals his brand new invisible mode, which completely bypasses his opponent's visual reflexes by turning the projectiles entirely transparent. Raising his glowing finger once more, our protagonist prepares to fire another undetectable shot, forcing a sweating Akira to brace himself for an attack he cannot even see coming. Akira desperately tries to predict the trajectory of the invisible attack to block it, but a sudden violent explosion detonates right against his face before he can react, leaving the sweaty elite completely bewildered as to why his ultimate defense failed him. Looking up, he realizes with absolute horror that his hexagonal barrier is still fully intact, meaning these terrifying invisible projectiles are actually passing straight through his solid defenses. Another heavy blast immediately knocks the elite flat on his back as he struggles to comprehend the situation, forcing him to admit his automated shield is completely useless against this phase-shifting attack, while Shindo casually raises his hand, shaping his fingers into a deadly mock gun, standing triumphantly over his defeated opponent to mock his filtered defensive strategy. Our protagonist flashes a savage grin, officially reclaiming his title as the ultimate magic bullet killer. Akira's smug confidence completely evaporates as he realizes he is now totally cornered, with Shindo pressing a finger gun directly against his head at point-blank range, reminding the elite that even passive magic resistance cannot save him from a direct blast. Before his opponent can even blink, our boy unleashes his devastating penetration mode, sending the self-proclaimed ultimate counter flying across the arena in absolute agony, leaving him flat on his back, smoking from the sheer impact of the attack. As the automated system officially crowns Shindo the winner and the new 10th rank elite, this stunned crowd can only watch in absolute disbelief at this impossible upset, while our protagonist casually apologizes to the unconscious loser for ruining his comfortable life, proving to the entire academy that he absolutely refuses to let anyone block his path. This surrounding crowd erupts in absolute chaos, completely unable to comprehend how invisible magic bullets are even possible. Up in the stands, the blonde glasses guy quietly processes the wild trick with a highly intrigued expression. Adjusting his spectacles, he realizes Shindo's secret technique is actually a brilliant piece of tactical misdirection, while the blue-haired elite girl instantly deduces that the attack wasn't actually an invisible bullet at all. She notes that if the projectile was simply transparent, the automated barrier would have still blocked it easily, since the defense system is designed to automatically trigger whenever any hostile threat enters its detection range, meaning Shindo's attack didn't actually break the shield, but rather phased completely through the solid structure. Satisfied with seeing our boy's true potential, she abruptly stands up and decides to leave the arena, prompting her blonde companion to quickly follow behind since the main event has officially wrapped up. Still, he casts one final glance back at Shindo, fully recognizing a dangerous new rival has arrived. Looking down at the arena, the glasses guy notes that Shindo officially joins their class tomorrow, flashing a smug grin as he eagerly anticipates how the rookie will survive A-class. This next morning, our boy meets up with Kagami right outside the main school building, and she absolutely beams with joy knowing his official promotion starts today. Complimenting his brand new uniform, she points out how incredibly sharp his red tie looks, which makes our usually cool protagonist blush slightly as he adjusts his collar. He genuinely credits her for his success, catching the purple-haired girl completely off guard, explaining that he never could have climbed the academy ranks so smoothly without her help, prompting a flustered Kagami to frantically wave her hands and insist she owes him everything. Silently remembering the day he saved her and feeling incredibly grateful she took his hand, Kagami sweetly reminds him that they are heading to different classes, promising to always cheer him on. And our boy offers a genuine smile in return, deeply appreciating her unwavering support. He reassures her that the bullies should back off now, promising to help if trouble ever arises, which makes the purple-haired girl blush deeply as she politely thanks him for his endless kindness. But she quickly reassures him that she will be perfectly fine on her own moving forward, explaining that she wants to rely on her own strength to face the Academy's challenges, aiming to stand proud by the time they finally graduate from this prestigious magic school. Hearing her newfound determination, Shindo can only smile warmly at her impressive growth, encouraging her to keep pushing forward so they can both reach the top together, leaving Kagami with a bright, happy blush as they prepare to conquer their new paths. With a firm handshake, the two seal their promise to keep climbing to the very top, before parting ways as Shindo heads down the quiet corridor toward his brand new classroom, mentally preparing himself for the elite challenges waiting behind those highly exclusive doors. Realizing that in his previous life he never even got close to entering Class A. Just as he reaches the entrance, a casual greeting suddenly interrupts his train of thought, revealing a smug, red-haired elite who promises to give our boy a very proper welcome, warning him that this special selection class operates on a completely different level of brutality, though he admits Shindo actually managed to transfer in at the absolute perfect moment, leaving our protagonist highly suspicious as the elite mentions a massive exam happening tomorrow, officially introducing the high-stakes representative selection battle that will decide the Academy's ultimate champions. Shindo stares back at his new rival, realizing they will finally face each other directly, while the unhinged red-haired elite flashes a wicked grin, promising to personally crush our boy. This next day, the homeroom teacher announces that summer vacation is just around the corner. But before anyone can celebrate, he drops the bomb about a brutal special exam, explaining that the legendary summer exchange tournament between the three prestigious academies is starting soon, which means they must select the absolute strongest fighters to represent their school. Our protagonist listens intently as the teacher prepares to reveal the name of this trial, officially introducing the high-stakes Tokonada Academy Representative Selection Exam to the silent classroom. This massive tournament pits their school against the elite Keiho and Seikai academies, where top-tier third-year students clash in a brutal display of magical dominance to crown a champion. Since the tournament's cast nationwide, it directly dictates the academy's future reputation and applicant numbers, making this high-stakes event the absolute peak of pressure for every single student in Class A. But for Shindo, it represents a golden ticket he absolutely cannot afford to let slip away. Realizing his basic magic bullet skill would normally get him laughed out of top-tier university screenings, he needs to dominate this tournament to force those prestigious colleges to take him seriously. As the teacher explains, the exam is a brutal virtual battle royale to select 2 representatives, warning the elite students that tomorrow's trial will permanently shape the trajectory of their careers. Once the briefing wraps up, the classroom empties out as everyone prepares for the upcoming slaughter, only for a sudden mocking voice to interrupt our boy's thoughts and call him incredibly lucky, revealing the smug red-haired elite who cannot wait to personally dismantle Shindo in the virtual arena. Before the red-haired elite can do any real damage, a cold voice suddenly calls out his name, revealing the student council president, who warns him that personal threats won't be tolerated in his presence. But the hot-headed redhead immediately snaps back, threatening to eliminate the president right then and there. Suddenly, a completely different voice cuts through the tension, calling out Shindo's full name, prompting our boy to quickly spin around and face the unexpected speaker, who turns out to be the blue-haired elite girl, proudly announcing she actually remembered his name. Flashing a confident smirk, Shindo takes the sudden recognition as a massive compliment, boldly declaring to the entire room that he will be the ultimate winner of tomorrow's exam, only for the girl to immediately turn on her heel and walk away without another word, leaving our protagonist completely dumbfounded by her absolute lack of interest in his dramatic speech. Shindo shrugs off the drama, deciding to let his rivals enjoy their final moments of peace, clenching his fist as he eagerly anticipates the absolute chaos of tomorrow's selection exam. And as the sun rises on a brand new day of high-stakes magical competition, this academy hallways buzz with intense gossip about the upcoming Battle Royale tournament, only for a familiar voice to suddenly call out to our protagonist from behind, prompting a surprised Shindo to turn around and face a very unexpected classmate, a smug, dark-haired student who was previously demoted to the lower ranks of Class B, boasting that he just secured his glorious return by defeating the 10th rank elite, leaving our boy completely speechless at the sheer absurdity of this guy's outdated information, before casually pulling out his phone to check the hilarious reality of the new rankings. Shindo stares at his phone, realizing he has already climbed all the way to rank 7, which explains why that delusional Class B loser sent him such a bizarre duel challenge yesterday. Turns out the red-haired tyrant runs a massive faction that protects its members from demotion by forcing random students to challenge the 10th rank and immediately surrender to manipulate the system, allowing Neo-Jin to easily swap his loyal pawns back into the elite class, meaning this smug challenger only had to be the pre-defeated victim to reclaim his spot. This corrupt cluster essentially acts as the red-haired dictator's personal army of loyal slaves, trading their absolute obedience for a guaranteed safety net whenever they fail their exams, leaving our protagonist thoroughly disgusted by the toxic power dynamics ruling over Class A as Neo-Jin continues to reign supreme by keeping his desperate followers on a very tight leash. This smug challenger casually reveals that he actually won't be fighting our boy today, leaving Shindo completely puzzled as he tries to make sense of this sudden change of plans. Turns out the lackey's only job is to block any interference during the main event, ensuring the red-haired tyrant gets his highly anticipated one-on-one showdown with our protagonist. Knowing he stands zero chance of winning, the pawn happily steps aside to clear Jin's path. Right on cue, the bearded homeroom teacher steps up to address the gathered elite students, officially kicking off the high-stakes representative selection exam that everyone has been waiting for, revealing a massive holographic ruined city where the combatants will be randomly scattered across 5 kilometers. Fortunately, the entire Battle Royale takes place inside a highly advanced virtual reality system, meaning they can unleash absolute lethal violence without actually risking their lives in the process. This virtual reality system boots up instantly, transporting the students into a massive ruined city wasteland, where Shindo's digital avatar begins to materialize piece by piece onto the dusty concrete ground, fully spawning into the high-stakes Battle Royale as he prepares to face the Academy's absolute best. Realizing that in his previous life he never actually got the chance to take this exam, this lack of experience puts him at a slight slight disadvantage against classmates who already know the terrain, but complaining won't help as he steps forward, keeping his guard up for any sudden ambushes, only for his eyes to suddenly widen in pure shock as a strange sensation hits him, instantly recognizing the invisible pressure of a highly advanced radar skill locking onto his exact location. Though a quick scan of the desolate ruins reveals absolutely nobody in his immediate vicinity, Shindo quickly calculates the range, realizing his opponent possesses a high-level detection spell of over 100 meters. Realizing his location is already compromised, Shindo bolts through the ruined streets to find cover. High above on a rooftop, the glasses-wearing student council president calmly prepares his signature magic bullet, unleashing a level 3 curved shot that arcs gracefully across the sky toward our protagonist. Sensing the sudden magical fluctuation, Shindo looks up only to see a glowing projectile heading his way, and as the blue light reflects in his eyes, he realizes dodging this homing attack is impossible. A massive explosion erupts upon impact, triggering a shockwave that completely engulfs the entire street. But the ruthless president isn't done yet, immediately aiming his finger to fire another barrage, sending a relentless storm of magical blasts that completely obliterate the surrounding concrete ruins. Back in the classroom, the spectating students watch in awe, convinced Shindo couldn't possibly survive this onslaught. Fortunately, our boy slides gracefully through the smoke, proving that a little fireworks won't defeat him so easily. Watching the broadcast with bated breath, Kagami desperately prays for our boy's safety, hoping he can somehow survive this brutal, relentless onslaught of high-level magical bombardment. While back in the virtual ruins, Shindo curses his lack of early preparation. He sprints through the crumbling streets, annoyed that he let his opponent take the initiative. Realizing the student council president is using a flawless radar and carpet bombing combo to corner him, a ruthless signature tactic that has made Shirasaya Sojiro one of the Academy's top elites. Instead of panicking, our protagonist flashes a confident smirk in the face of danger, even as another barrage of explosive projectiles rains down from the sky above. Deciding to fight fire with fire, Shindo quickly opens his interface to tune his magic bullets, aiming to exploit the exact physical weakness of the president's incoming explosive attacks. Shindo fires his own magic bullets upward, aiming to intercept the incoming homing projectiles before they land. And right on cue, they detonate midair to keep the destructive shockwaves far away from the ground, allowing our boy to quickly slip away through the thick smokescreen to find a safer position. But his escape is cut short when a familiar, annoying voice suddenly echoes from around the corner, revealing the smug red-haired tyrant who has been desperately hunting him down this entire time. Shindo clicks his tongue, realizing that flashy mid-air fireworks show made him stand out way too much, while Jin flashes a wicked grin, absolutely thrilled to finally get his highly anticipated face-off, immediately summoning his signature red-hot chains to wrap around his arms in a terrifying display of power. With a wild laugh, the red-haired psycho whips the deadly chains forward to tear our protagonist apart, forcing Shindo to quickly deploy his barrier-style magic bullet to block the incoming lethal strike. Shindo blocks the chain attack with his barrier, but the sheer force still rattles him, realizing this unhinged tyrant packs a lot more physical power than he originally anticipated, while Jin roars in delight, refusing to let his favorite new target escape so easily. Our boy quickly switches to rapid-fire mode, unleashing a barrage of high-speed magic bullets, only for the glowing projectiles to hit Jin directly without leaving a single scratch, prompting a stunned Shindo to realize his opponent possesses some seriously heavy-duty defensive skills. This rare ability grants the Redhead armor-tier defense without sacrificing a single ounce of mobility, allowing the smug tyrant to mock our protagonist for constantly retreating like a coward. But Shindo simply smiles as he continues to back away through the dusty ruins, calmly explaining that he wasn't actually running away, but rather baiting Jin into a perfect trap. Jin finally looks around, his smug expression instantly vanishing as he recognizes their current location. Shindo flashes a mocking grin, roasting the red-haired tyrant for taking so long to notice, explaining that this exact spot is where he got blasted right at the start, meaning they are both standing directly inside the student council president's lethal bombardment zone. Realizing he has been completely played, Jin growls our protagonist's name in absolute fury, but Shindo simply chuckles, apologizing that the hothead won't be getting his promised duel today, immediately deploying his barrier-style magic bullet just as a massive explosion rains down, successfully riding out the devastating shockwave because he already knows his defenses can handle it. By tracing the trajectory of that last incoming blast, our boy easily pinpoints the president's location, knowing he needs to find some solid cover before the next deadly barrage begins. Jin refuses to stay down, launching his glowing red chains right back into the action, forcing our boy to quickly react as the deadly metal links whip past his face, while the unhinged tyrant laughs off the massive explosion like it was absolutely nothing. Shindo realizes that even a direct bombing run won't take this tanky psycho down, dodging frantically as the massive chains smash into the concrete with terrifying range. Realizing his opponent has heavily boosted his physical stats using high-level enhancement skills, which explains how Jin can shrug off direct magical attacks without taking any damage, proving exactly why this corrupt bully managed to crown himself the king of his faction. But Shindo isn't about to let a mid-tier boss ruin his grand plans today. Knowing he still has much bigger walls to climb before reaching the absolute top, Shindo prepares to end the fight, focusing his energy into a single, decisive magic bullet, quickly tuning his spell to adjust the frequency and maximize its destructive output, while the red-haired tyrant watches with a smug grin, eagerly welcoming the incoming attack. Jin boasts that he already analyzed this exact skill during Shindo's previous duel with Akira, recalling how the weaker students panicked over what they called invisible bullets, a pathetic display of fear that only made the arrogant faction leader laugh in disdain. Confident that he has already completely figured out the trick behind our boy's signature move, this red-haired tyrant whips his glowing red chains forward, daring Shindo to bring out his trump card. But our protagonist calmly aims his finger, planning to use this precise shot to break his defense. As the unhinged tyrant smiles wildly, convinced that firing this bullet will be Shindo's final mistake. Shindo unleashes his signature invisible style, pointing his finger like a loaded gun to end this. But the high-speed projectile merely detonates against the tyrant's heavy defense without leaving a scratch, prompting Jin to laugh hysterically as he boasts that pathetic tricks won't work on him. Turns out the arrogant redhead has spent his free time analyzing our boy's signature technique, explaining how Shindo deliberately cancels his initial spell to create a clever visual delay, before immediately firing a secondary ultra-fast projectile in a split-second quick draw, making it look like the cancelled attack magically landed with a delayed impact, meaning the entire setup is just a brilliant piece of psychological misdirection. He calculates the exact speed, realizing these specialized projectiles travel at double the normal velocity, which perfectly explains how Shindo bypassed Akira's automated shadow defenses during their previous duel. Jin narrows his eyes, confident that he has finally exposed the fatal flaw of Shindo's signature move, and as our protagonist charges straight ahead, the arrogant tyrant prepares to spring his ultimate trap, boasting that a speed-focused invisible projectile simply lacks the raw destructive power to finish him off. He screams that these specialized attacks are completely useless when it comes to landing a lethal blow, meaning Shindo is forced to close the distance if he wants any hope of winning this duel. With a wild laugh, Jin unleashes a devastating counterattack the exact moment our boy steps into range. But our protagonist smoothly ducks beneath the massive red chain with split-second precision, revealing a smug grin as he admits he fully expected the hothead to try that exact counter. Jin's jaw drops in absolute shock as he realizes he has been completely outplayed once again, allowing Shindo to point his finger and unleash a massive high-power piercing shot to end this fight. Jin unleashes a massive blue energy blast, confident he has finally put an end to our protagonist. But Shindo simply smirks, revealing that this entire exchange was nothing more than a clever bait, while the red-haired tyrant desperately tries to adjust his stance to counter the incoming strike. Unfortunately for him, a blinding flash of magical energy erupts right in front of his face, allowing our boy to smoothly slip past his guard and grab hold of his opponent's shoulder. Shindo calmly explains that he has been playing three-dimensional chess while his opponent played checkers, leaving the arrogant faction leader frozen in absolute shock as his perfect defense completely crumbles, as he explains that his true objective from the very beginning of this chaotic duel was to establish physical contact and directly tune the tyrant's highly praised defensive skill, forcing his armor into an extreme overdrive that will rapidly drain every ounce of his stamina. Jin gasps in shock as the sudden stamina drain hits his system like a truck, realizing his massive physical strength is completely evaporating in a matter of seconds, as he stares at our protagonist, horrified that Shindo was hiding such a broken skill, knowing he will burn out instantly if he keeps his heavy armor active. This desperate tyrant deactivates his defense and swings his chains in a final wild gamble, which is exactly what our boy wanted, instantly noticing the bully dropped his guard, allowing Shindo to calmly point his finger and declare an absolute checkmate. He charges up a basic magic bullet, knowing his opponent can no longer survive a direct hit, unleashing a devastating blast that sends the screaming redhead flying backward into the dirt, leaving our smug protagonist to sarcastically praise the fallen tyrant for playing right into his hands. Shindo stands tall amidst the crumbling virtual ruins, calmly declaring his absolute victory over the fallen tyrant, while Jin lies defeated on the shattered concrete, groaning in pain as his damage threshold finally breaks, forcing the arrogant redhead to officially admit defeat as his virtual avatar begins to pixelate and dissolve. But even as he fades, the sore loser screams a furious promise to crush our boy next time, before the system announcement suddenly reveals that only 4 active participants remain in the match, leaving Shindo completely baffled by how quickly the rest of the competition got wiped off the map, realizing that only one absolute monster possesses the terrifying power to sweep through A-class geniuses like this, and that unstoppable force is none other than the Academy's legendary Ice Queen, Hisame Himakawa. Across the ruins, the blue-haired prodigy stands cold and silent over a field of defeated opponents, as another bruised victim sighs in resignation, fully aware that challenging her was a complete suicide mission. Akira lies defeated on the ground, genuinely impressed that our boy managed to take down Jin, but he warns Shindo that his lucky streak is about to hit a massive brick wall, explaining that the legendary Ice Queen has been holding back her true, terrifying power. While Akira acknowledges our protagonist as a first-rate wizard who deserves plenty of respect, He remains absolutely convinced that Shindo stands zero chance of actually defeating her, pointing to the massive, jagged glaciers currently swallowing up the entire virtual arena, as the system officially announces Akira's retirement, leaving only 3 active fighters remaining. High above the ruins, the Student Council president silently observes the chaotic battlefield, calculating the final results since only 2 slots are available on the representative team, knowing that one of those coveted spots already belongs to the unstoppable Ice Queen. Adjusting his glasses, the blonde strategist notes that everyone else is now fighting over the final slot, admitting he planned to let Jin tire himself out before Shindo unexpectedly ruined his scheme. But he still has no intention of losing this match to a mere freshman, boasting that his unique abilities make him a far worse matchup than any previous opponent. Meanwhile, Shindo quietly navigates the desolate, crumbling streets of the virtual arena, keeping a close eye on the system counter as only 2 other competitors remain standing, guessing that he will likely cross paths with the smug blonde strategist before facing the Ice Queen. Suddenly, a barrage of glowing blue projectiles rains down from above, confirming his tactical predictions, as a massive explosion tears through the concrete ruins right where he was standing, forcing our boy to quickly dodge the incoming curved shots before they can pin him down. By tracking the trajectory of the incoming shots, Shindo deduces his opponent took the high ground, and he immediately slides through the thick smoke to mask his approach from the sniper, deploying a specialized air suspension spell to glide effortlessly across the ruined concrete without making a sound, using the location of the last bombardment to pinpoint exactly where the president is hiding, suddenly dropping down right behind the blonde strategist, who is still busy looking for him below. This president gasps in absolute shock as he realizes his perfect sniper nest has been compromised, realizing too late that Shindo used his own heavy bombardment as cover to close the distance. Our boy smugly points out that long-range curved shots are useless when an opponent gets this close, unleashing a quick-fire blast that forces the president to back away while his defenses sizzle out, proving that the sheer versatility of tuning magic makes him an absolute nightmare at any range. Shindo charges forward to press his close-range advantage, confident he has the upper hand, but the blonde strategist quickly retaliates by whipping out a high-level iron wire spell, forcing our boy to deploy a quick shield style to deflect the incoming metal threads, believing this is the perfect opening to put an end to the match. He charges up a high-powered piercing bullet, aiming directly at the smug president's face, only for the strategist to smirk and activate a sneaky skill disruption technique, which instantly dissolves Shindo's magic into thin air and leaves him completely dumbfounded, allowing the glasses-wearing bully to launch a sudden counter-offensive with a triumphant shout. A sudden shockwave blasts our protagonist backward, disrupting his rhythm and forcing a painful grunt. As he realizes his opponent deliberately used the blast to reset the battlefield's distance, Shindo's eyes widen in realization as he tries to process what just happened to his magic, confirming his worst fears as his signature projectile completely fails to ignite from his fingertips, realizing the president hit him with a rare skill disruption that disables abilities on contact, recalling how a similar bizarre phenomenon occurred during his previous clash with the Ice Queen. But he quickly shakes off the distraction, knowing he cannot afford to lose focus now, since sealing his single signature move effectively strips away his entire offensive and defensive arsenal, leaving our boy completely powerless and practically demoted to a regular human with no magic. Meanwhile, the smug president adjusts his glasses, boasting that he has successfully established a safe distance, confident that Shindo can no longer use his magic bullets to counterattack or force a backfire, trapping our protagonist high above the ruins with absolutely no way to fight back or escape. This smug president prepares a curved magic bullet infused with explosive detonation power, confidently declaring that this match is officially over for our magicless protagonist. But Shindo merely smirks right back, refusing to let the bully break his spirit, knowing he only possesses a single weak skill and absolutely zero natural magical talent. Our boy firmly plants his foot and prepares to make his final stand, proving that he has mastered the art of combat without relying on cheap spells. He charges straight ahead, while his opponent laughs off the desperate assault as futile, whipping out a high-level iron wire spell to completely shut down the incoming rush. Unfortunately, the sharp metal threads catch our protagonist off guard, sending him stumbling backward, leaving Shindo groaning in pain as the strategist prepares to deliver the final blow. Looking down with a smug grin, the president mockingly praises Shindo for trying to close the distance, before preparing to unleash a devastating spell to put the magicless freshman in his place. But our protagonist simply smirks right back, completely unfazed by the incoming magical onslaught. Suddenly, Shindo stomps his foot down to shatter the concrete, declaring his master plan is finally complete, leaving the glasses-wearing strategist absolutely horrified as his perfect victory instantly slips away, as chunks of broken concrete erupt into the air from the previous iron wire attack. This blonde bully realizes Shindo deliberately forced his way into close quarters for a specific reason, baiting the strategist into using his signature metal threads to trigger a massive tactical trap, knowing Shindo would gladly risk blowing himself up just to secure a decisive win. This president watches in terror as a blinding magical explosion erupts right between them. Shindo explains that Shirasaya had to angle his iron wires downward to catch him sliding low, which perfectly anchored the metal threads to the ground and sealed his own explosive fate, leaving our smug protagonist to mock the strategist for desperately trying to keep him away. Since closing the distance was the only way to trigger a massive, self-destructive magical backfire. This blonde president screams in absolute horror as his own overloaded spell detonates in his face, sending Shinshu tumbling backward from the massive shockwave as the dust finally begins to settle, and the system officially announces Shirasaya's elimination, leaving only 2 active fighters in the match. Our exhausted hero lets out a massive sigh of relief, glad his crazy gamble actually worked. Realizing that with the president's skill disruption gone, his signature magic bullet is finally back online, before he slowly pushes himself up, knowing the elite lineup is settled but the fight isn't over. Shindo stands on the edge of the high ruins, teasingly asking if the fun is already over, as he peers down at the legendary Ice Queen standing silently amidst the shattered battlefield, while Hisame Himikawa stares back up with her trademark cold, completely unbothered expression, prompting our smug protagonist to flash a confident grin and eagerly declare their official rematch.